Hey everybody, welcome to the Muscle News and Merlin podcast. This is episode number 11. Of course, I am Merlin. My partner in crime, Kevin, is over there all the way in Malta. So we live quite a while from each other. And I am very, very, very excited to have a special guest, somebody that I have known, it's got to be almost 40 years at this point.
Wow.
Way back when I was a baby in the bodybuilding world. We both lived in New York at the time, Long Island. I think, Tom, you were Massapequa,
That's correct. Massapequa Park. Yep.
Massapequa Park, and I was Belmore. But anyway, this is Tom Terwilliger, and he's been, I mean, it's amazing because we go back so far, and we've managed to keep in contact all these years, still know what each other is doing. We've worked on some things together many
Mhm.
times, and Tom, you're a great inspiration to me back when I was first starting. You were the
Thank
first
you.
pro bodybuilder that I ever knew. And let me just say here publicly that I have so much respect for you, everything that you've done, the person that you are. You've always just been not only a great bodybuilder, but you were just always a great person. And you're always just so supportive of me and supportive of my efforts in bodybuilding. And I worked for you and stuff like that, which we'll get into. But anyway, guys, here he is, Tom Terwilliger, and I'm so excited to have you on.
Well, Eric, I can't even tell you how excited I am. Number one, that I've been invited to speak with you and join your group on your podcast, but that you have come so far. I can't even tell you. It's one of those things where, you were a young guy, early 20s, and working on you were employed at Maximum Health and Fitness. We'll go into that's my gym's back in New York. And then did so well in our body. We had a great bodybuilding show. You did well there, but it's just like it's so exciting to see someone that you feel like maybe you had some influence on, some mentoring aspect with, to rise to the top. Yeah, I consider you certainly, if not the, but certainly one of the top coaches, bodybuilding coaches in the world today. And I think that's a great deal because of your love of the sport. When you love something and you're passionate about it, you don't necessarily have to plan. Planning's good, but you just rise with it, man, because of the love takes you forward. And that's what it's done, man. And I'm so proud of that. And thank you for having me today, man.
Oh man, it's really such a pleasure, Tom. And thank you for those kind words. That really means a lot to me. Trust me, it does. So, let's talk about it a little bit. I'll start this off, and I know Kevin has questions for you. But like I said, Tom and I go way back. I actually think that I met you when we trained at the Belmore Fitness Center,
Was it
owned
Ultimate Gym? Was that
or
called
Ultimate
Ultimate
Gym.
Gym? Yep.
Ultimate, yeah, I don't remember which one it was called. Maybe he changed the name. But anyway, Bob Cardone owned it, and
Yes.
yeah, and he was actually my sensei back then because I was in martial arts as you were, which we
Mm.
could talk about because I know you have a new book out, which we will definitely talk about. And I met you at that gym, and I was like, and I had followed, back then I watched everything, the nationals. I mean, anything that was on TV about bodybuilding, I watched. And to meet you in person and talk to you and for you to be, you never know what you're gonna, when you meet somebody who you look up to, you know what kind of person they're gonna be. Are they gonna be friendly to you? Are they gonna be standoffish? Because you see different kinds of people in the
Oh, yeah.
industry, just immediately just so welcoming and talkative and helpful. So we immediately struck a friendship. And I watched you, training at the gym and tried to learn from you and ask you questions. So it was just an amazing start to I can't, a friendship that's lasted all these years. So
It was. And I'm just, that Ultimate Gym experience was such a good one for me as well, because I had been training at Future Man Gym, which was a hardcore bodybuilding gym where I got my early start as a teenager. We can talk about some of that because that place was like really hardcore, man. But then when they changed, and it was just like I had to find a new place later on after coming out of this whole biker thing and leaving bodybuilding. Ultimate Gym was such a great place because it had young guys like you. It had young guys like Ronnie Starantino and others, all these young
yeah,
guys that
yeah,
were
yeah.
so hungry. And something is just like, it was easy to find a badass training partner. Yeah, man, we're training at the same time. I see how you're training legs. Let's go. And it was fantastic. So that experience, that Ultimate Gym, I had forgotten that you were one of those young guys there, man, that was
I think I
so
was
hungry
only,
for information. It was
I
great.
was maybe 17, 18 years old when I started there.
Yeah.
And, that was just, me I was a skinny little kid. I started off, same height I am now. I weighed about 125 pounds.
Right.
So I was just a bunch of, skin and bones. But I loved it and I lived it. And like I said, the culture we had at the gym together at that point in time, there were so
Mm.
many, you and I nobody would know the names, but Mike Yablon, who now is, he's a pro bodybuilder at this point. He was a hungry little kid. Durlin Castro, he pro body. We had so many people there that were so
Tony
hungry.
Ricci, remember Tony?
Tony Ricky, for sure. I mean, these guys, I mean, everybody lived the sport back then. So it was like a brotherhood, it was like a really good
Mhm.
brotherhood that we had there. So it was amazing to go to that gym every day. But since you mentioned your beginning, just give me a little background of, I know that you came from a martial arts background. You did, that were heavy into that. But
Mm.
let's go to the bodybuilding part. When did the bug hit you? When were you like, this is my sport, I want to do this?
Well, it was fascinating because, as I said, I started Chinese Kung Fu when I was about 10 years old and started studying with my older brother, who was the lead instructor at the temple in Queens for the Kung Fu Wu Association, led by and founded by Grandmaster Alan Lee. And so that really got my athletic thing going. It's like a love of athleticism and understanding and developing rapport with my body. And then, of course, it was just not long after that, a couple of years after that, that the whole Kung Fu craze started. Bruce Lee. I
Yeah.
remember going to see my first Bruce Lee movie. It was called The Big Boss, and
Oh
it, and
my,
it didn't
I
play.
remember.
It didn't play anywhere except Chinatown in Manhattan. So my older brother took me to see The Big Boss with Bruce Lee, and I had no idea who he was. I didn't know he was Kato. I didn't even know if he was Kato at the time. And
Okay.
I went home and told my twin brother about it. I'm like, oh my God, this guy was amazing. And we started emulating Bruce Lee. And that emulation in terms of the art, the Kung Fu, which, by the way, I got in big trouble for many times because I got smacked in the head more times than I can remember by either my brother Raymond or one of the instructors at the Kung Fu Academy proposing. Because I would do the whoa,
Yeah,
and
doing the Bruce Lee
in the
stuff.
head. Stop posing. You're going to get yourself killed.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, okay, I can't help it. I'm emulating Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
But then it was his physique. I was really skinny, so his physique inspired me when he did his lat spread and his whole
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
And was like, and then I also remember the very first day someone turned me on to bodybuilding itself. So I was at home in homeroom, seventh grade homeroom, and a kid, one of my lacrosse guys that I was playing lacrosse with, was outside my homeroom when I came out, and he had a magazine. He goes, "You got to check this magazine out." Now we were already working out a little bit with weights for lacrosse and for the Kung Fu, and it was a picture of Arnold on the cover of Muscle Builder magazine.
All right.
And you remember that one? He had the arm blaster wrapped around his torso.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
doing curls.
Famous.
And the teeth separation and the veins and the squared off brick like bicep. I was sold, man. I flipped through those pages and all those black and white pictures by Artie Zeller, who's long gone. He took all those pictures, the black and whites of Frank Zane, Denny Gable, Robbie Robinson. I mean, it's just like this was it, man. I was absolutely sold. From the moment I touched the weight again, it had a different meaning, a different purpose. That sparked a fire like it has never gone out.
Oh, absolutely. Kevin, I think
Just
you
to
want to say
interrupt,
something.
sorry. I'm noticing, I mean, even back then, Bruce Lee films, Enter the Dragon and all these things. Bruce Lee, there was a connection to a lot of guys that went on to bodybuilding from Bruce Lee because you wouldn't see a physique like that back then as well in the cinema.
No.
It was something. It's like it started getting people into physical fitness and things like because they wanted to look like him, and then obviously people went on to bigger things.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Even in the martial arts world, you just didn't see that physique. And he was an avid weight trainer. He
Yeah.
did lots of isometrics, power isometrics, overcoming isometrics, stuff like that. And I think so that really lit the fire. Bruce Lee, then the magazine seeing Arnold, and I knew at that point even I was never going to look like Arnold. So I latched on to Frank Zane. Frank Zane became doable to me. It was like I can be that physique. But I also have to admit, if I'm completely honest, it was just like at that age, being a skinny kid, even though no one could take me because of already 8 years of kung fu training. That didn't matter. I was starting to be attracted to girls, and I wanted to look good.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to look good for the girls. So that
Sure.
helped fuel the fire, you might say, in junior high school, well into high school.
Yeah, and let's admit that looking at girls brought our testosterone levels up a little bit higher. So that's good muscle building.
What do you mean used to? Did you say
Well, that's
used
true.
to?
That's true. What am I saying?
Yeah.
It keeps them high.
Yeah.
But yeah, so all right. So you started, bodybuilding around then.
What
You
year
said
is this? What
Frank
year is
Zane
this?
was kind of like your mentor.
Yeah, yeah.
And in terms of physique, what you kind of like
Yeah.
wanted to look like. Uh,
And the other thing, Eric, about that, just for a moment before, it's just like the other thing about Frank Zane that really appealed to me, because I came from, not to get too into this, but I came from a feeling of being disenfranchised. My brother and I had dyslexia, and we were hyperactive, and we were put into the special ed class in 4th grade. And that led all the way to 8th grade, special ed class in 8th grade. So I felt disenfranchised. I felt like there was a struggle going on, and I felt like I wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough, I was stupid. Frank Zane represented a smart bodybuilder. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I'm going to have a physique like Frank, I also want to have the intelligence. I want to have the mental capability. Frank was a teacher. He came across as an intelligent, articulate guy, and it was like, that's my role model right there, man.
yeah, I could, well, I totally understand that. His intellectual capacity was to speak about the sport and about
Yeah.
bodybuilding and what it was about and the science of it is very appealing to people like, who you think on that same level or want to think on that
Right.
same level. So
I wanted to think on that same level.
right.
It's like,
And
I
that's,
didn't
and
think I
that,
was there.
yeah. So very interesting. That's really, really cool. So just to jump ahead a little bit, because we could probably keep you on this podcast for 8
Oh my
hours
God, yeah.
about everything, to be honest. Might have to have you on a second time. All right, so you got into bodybuilding. Um, where did who was, obviously Frank Zane wasn't in your backyard. So how did you learn the basics of training and diet and what you had to do to begin your journey?
It's so interesting because I was very fortunate at that time, like in the early 70s,
Okay. So
to like discover bodybuilding because there was so much going on around it. There was the Venice Beach scene with Arnold Franco and all those black and white pictures from Muscle Builder magazine. But there was also up and coming. It was just, I remember when I was just getting into it, in that magazine, I kept reading about, wow, there's this movie coming out called Pumping Iron.
yeah.
And it's like, and I lived in Long Island, and the movie, it premiered in a theater in Manhattan. And my 7th and 8th grade buddies and I went to see it. Of
Wow.
course, if I'm fully honest, we got stoned before we went in. It was one of those things, you know what I mean? We were young, we were doing that kind of thing. And so we went to the theater to see it. And you probably wouldn't remember because you were a little younger at the time, but I think it was Lou Ferrigno,
Yep.
Robbie Robinson, Ed Corney, one or two other, Mike Katz, perhaps, actually were live and guest posed at the event. And Ed Corney,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turning around.
Ed Corney's posing just,
Yeah.
I was like, another mentor. I was like,
Of course.
I want
Posing.
to make people feel that, man.
Yeah.
So that was another thing. So really, I started seeking because I was working out in my basement, working out at a little place called Iron Masters, which sounds a lot more
I
hardcore
remember
than-
Iron Masters. I trained
You
at Iron
really?
Masters in Massapequa.
Yeah, Masters was right
Yeah.
next to the high school.
That was one of the first gyms I ever went to. Yeah.
No kidding. I had no idea. And that's right.
I remember. What was the name of the guy who owned it? Steve something?
Steve, yeah, he was an
Steve
iron
Sharp or
worker.
something?
Yeah, Steve, I can't, what was it?
I think Steve Sharp. Was it Steve Sharp or something?
Oh no, Steve Sharp was a staple there. He was.
Oh,
he
okay.
was
So that's why I
always
remember
there.
meeting him. That's why I remember
Yeah,
meeting
but
him.
I'll tell you something about Steve Sharp. If he's listening, I want to compliment Steve. Steve was one of the nicest, most complimentary people I've ever known in my life. It was just like, that guy is amazing. He was amazing.
Had a great
He had a
physique.
decent physique, but he was just so giving. He was just such a great guy. And again, maybe that's, I knew how that made me feel as a young bodybuilder coming up. It was just like, I think unconsciously I made some decisions around these things. It's like I wanted to make people feel something. Ed Carney made me feel something. Steve Sharp made me feel something that was more than I was feeling. And I knew how it made me feel. I wanted others to feel the same way, you know? So it's interesting you trained at Iron Masters as well as a teenager. A lot of
Yeah,
teenagers.
just a few times I would go there, get some pass. Steve would give me a bunch of passes or whatever and let me come whenever I wanted. And whenever we can get there, we could. So that was one of the first places that I trained. But,
Me too. Me
and that
too.
place was
So
awesome. But
someone told me about while I was working out there, someone, and you may have heard about it too, but someone had told me about a new place that just opened in Amityville. And it was, 5 miles or so down the road from Massapequa into Amityville. And it was on Merrick Road, which was the same road Iron Masters was on. And they said, oh, yeah, this place is called Future Man Gym, but don't even go there. Those guys will eat you up and spit you out. They don't want punk ass kids like you in the gym. And I was like, but all the top guys were training there. Everyone, Mr. New York, Steve Mahalik, who was Mr.
I was just going to say, was Steve there? I bet you Steve is there.
Yeah,
he was there. And so I remember going 2, 3, 4 times, riding my bicycle there in the middle of winter, and like rubbing the window, trying to look in. Like, oh my God, I didn't have the balls. I couldn't go in, man. I was too afraid to go in. And it was like, I grew a set of balls, walked in the Future Man Gym. And the first thing that hit me, literally like a punch in the face, I kid you not, was the pungent smell of the place. It was, imagine taking a vat, like a witch's brew, and filling it with like old sweat, Bengay, and vomit, and then just stirring it up a little bit. And it was like, whoa, it was like, hit me in the face. I'm like, oh my God.
Hardcore.
Everybody wore Bengay.
Yeah.
And the guys in Future Man wore the same. And, Eric, we used to do the same thing. You'd wear the belt cinch. You'd have a sweatshirt. You never washed the sweatshirt or the sweatband. You hung it up, and you wore it the next time. And this would go on for months at a time. Yeah. So the smell was like, oh, my God. I mean, I couldn't even take a deep breath, man.
Like, how do you train in here? You can't get any oxygen. How do I train in here?
It was unbelievable. And it had no air conditioning. So in the summer, it was just brutal.
Yeah.
But I remember walking in that particular day, and some of your listeners, maybe you'd remember Bob Gruskin at all?
Sure. Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. Bob was a great coach. Bob was one of my mentors growing up. He was there with, he was photographing Steve Mahalik, who had just won the America. Uh-huh. And Steve had, if everybody else was wearing grungy old sweat-covered sweat stuff, Steve was the next level. He had a wife beater on that looked like it was 90 years old, holes in it. It was gray. It was sweat drip, and this belt cinched like Sinbad. I mean, and doing these photos, doing squats. And here I am. I'm this like 15, 16-year-old kid. I walk in and see this man, and it was just like, holy shit, the magazine had come to life suddenly. And I knew this was the place. This is where I had to train. This was
Chris Aceto's mentor. Chris Aceto always mentions him. Bob
Steve Mahalik or Bob Gruskin?
Bob Gruskin. Even when his son just won the pro card, just to go off a bit off subject, his son won the pro card this weekend.
No kidding.
He took him to his house. He took him to Bob's original house, the house in. He took him there to see it. So that guy had a big impression on a lot of coaches that are.
I'll tell you, we don't want to go off too much on someone that a lot of people may not know. Yeah. But he does deserve honoring because he had more great champions. He knew how to pick them, and he always picked guys that had legs. Like I could like Matt Mendenhall. I'm trying to remember some of the other guys. There were several others. Joe Miko, who won the AAU Mr. America, always had great legs. But he was a great teacher, great mentor. And if Bob Gruskin took you under his fold, you knew you had potential. If this guy can believe in me, then maybe I should believe in myself as well. And he deserves a tremendous amount of credit. He got a bad reputation because the guys I shouldn't say bad reputation, but there were some rumors going around because the guys that wanted to work with Bob and he wouldn't work with, that perhaps he was taking advantage of these young teenage bodybuilders. And I got to tell you, John Defendis, myself, Matt Mendenhall, we all worked in his camp. Never, ever, ever would that have been the case, ever. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So we were talking about, was it the guys at the gym, who kind of mentored you in terms of like how you should train, how you should diet? Was that kind of what happened, or?
I wouldn't say it was the guys. Everyone, gave a good example of training hard. Because anytime you were there, the same guys were there, and they were training hard. It was the first time I'd ever seen anybody really doing supersets and giant sets. And these guys didn't stroll from one machine, pec deck to the bench press. They didn't stroll. They ran. It was like, I got to get on this bench as quickly as possible before any kind of recovery takes place from being on the pec deck. And that was Tony Pandolfo training with John Girolamo. Do you remember John Girolamo at all?
I remember Tony. I don't remember John.
John was great. He won the New York State, great physique. I think he remained all natural pretty much most of his career. Really handsome guy, great arms, incredible calves and legs. But him and Tony trained together. And Tony, by the way, the first workout at Future Man, we had an encounter with Tony that was left an impression. My brother and I went in to train. I talked my twin brother into going in to train with me there. And we ate a bunch of hot dogs because we had read in one of the magazines that Arnold Schwarzenegger ate a bunch of he'd eat hot dogs after the workout. So we knew better. We were going to eat it before the workout, right? So we go in, and my brother throws up all over the gym floor. And so Tony comes over with the mop and the bucket, doesn't blink, doesn't say anything else other than clean it up, and walks away as if it was a daily occurrence. It was like, we thought we were doing something terrible. And it was just like,
there's probably people puking all over the place after squats. So,
everywhere.
part of the smell of the gym.
That's right. It was part of the indoctrination. If you don't throw up, don't even bother coming back.
Right. You have to vomit, otherwise you can't train here.
So Tony saw, and my brother, I didn't continue to go. I did. And he saw I was trying to pick up routines from the magazines, like everyone was. I was reading the magazines and picking up routines. Of course, it was way overtraining for a 16-year-old kid who wasn't on any kind of anabolic support or even a protein drink for that matter. And he started seeing what I was doing. I was spending 2-3 hours in the gym. So he took me aside. And Tony Pandolfo was, he was a great bodybuilder. He won the New York. He won the Masters, Nationals, or America. Great bodybuilder, short guy, but just really good. And just an incredible human being. I was very fortunate to have these human beings come into my life that gave me examples of how to be a good human being. And he took me aside and said, "Hey, kid, listen, what are you trying to do, man?" I said, "I'm trying to build some muscle." He goes, "Why?" I mean, he just kept like peeling the onion. He said, "Why?" "Well, because I want to be big. I want to look like a bodybuilder." "Why?" And he kept asking me why and why and why, until it got to this point where it's just like I was almost in tears because he got to the heart of why. And I can't remember to this day exactly what it was, but it was something so emotionally driven. And he said, "Okay," he goes, "I'm going to help you out a little bit." He goes, "You're not going to be in the gym for 3 hours. You're coming in, you're going to do an hour. That's going to be it. I'm going to keep an eye on you. If you're doing anything wrong, I'll let you know. But if you screw up once or you don't show up, then we're done." So he took me under his wing and really just sculpted me into this teenage bodybuilder, talked me into my first bodybuilding contest as a teenager. I was 17.
What was your first contest?
It was the Colonial America in West Orange, New Jersey.
Placed third.
And there was a lot of shows taking place in West Orange, New Jersey. It was just the high school or the YMCA. I can't remember. But I was up against some good guys. It was Ron Tufel.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Who was competing then as a teenager. He won. There was John Defendez, who I'd met.
Both of them turned pro. Yeah.
Yeah, John Defendez was great. In fact, I remember meeting John Defendez at Future Man. Bob Gruskin brought him in. And this is what Bob would do. He would bring the guys around to the different gyms where he knew their competition was. He knew it was John's competition. And so he brought John. And I remember seeing John. He had this tight leather jacket. I'm like, and Bob's like, "This is your competition at the Colonial America." And I'm like, "Oh my God, this guy, he's
going to destroy me."
He's going to destroy me. I saw myself as like a skinny teenager still, and John looked like, the badass. Sure enough, I beat him. He took third or fourth. I think there was only 4 competitors. He took fourth. I took third that day. So that was my first one, but Tony talked me into it. He said, "Yeah, man, why don't you get your feet wet? Enter your first contest." And that was really quite the experience, man. Going to West
1970.
Orange, New Jersey,
Yeah.
putting on the protein. We didn't have protein. We used copper tone.
Yeah.
And taking third. It was pretty encouraging.
1976, right? Because I
think
have
that was
the list here.
76.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then
Wow.
then you took 2 years off and you came back in 78.
I think I competed again in 77.
Because there was all right. Mr. Southern USA, AAU. You won.
AAU. It was all AAU competitions at the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
all right.
I was just gonna. I mean, I'd love to go through your entire history,
Yeah.
but
before you did that.
let's jump forward a little bit. So now you got to the level where you're trying to get your pro card. Okay, so what was the first pro qualifier that you went into? Was it a nationals?
Yes, it was the nationals, and I had come off basically like almost a 3 or 4 year hiatus because I was doing all these teenage shows. Won the Teenage Southern USA. I think that was my last show. Won the Teenage Metropolitan, which was highly respected. John Defenders won that the next year, and the overall. He won both the overall and teenagers that next year. So I took the time off. And again, I won't go into a long story about it, but I got my first Harley Davidson in high school. I was a junior, and that was right after the Southern USA winning that. And that took me down an entirely different path.
So that was after you started competing. I
was
under
after.
the impression that was before you started competing.
Yeah, that was after. In fact,
Wow.
It was the competition in many respects. Being able to go back to having that to fall back on, having bodybuilding to fall back on, probably saved my life because I was headed down a really bad path. I was riding with some serious outlaws, one of the most notorious outlaw clubs in the country, and having combatants in the other most formidable outlaw bike club in the country, and I was doing all sorts of just bad outlaw stuff. And bodybuilding, it's just like I started to think, this is not really who I am. I had already brainwashed myself into believing I'm something more. I'm Frank Zane. I'm these guys. I'm a champion. And thank God I had that to fall back on. And so came back to the sport, competed in, I think my first show was if I'm not mistaken, it was the overall
Junior USA?
New York State Metropolitan. And I won that. There was the Metropolitan Championships. And the Mets was a great show because
that's a big show.
Guys like Dennis Reno, Chris Dickerson, a lot of big guys won it. John Defenders. So it kind of put you on the map, you might say, So that was my first one, but it was a national qualifier, but it wasn't a pro qualifier. So my first pro qualifier was the nationals a year or two later, I think in 84. 84 was my first national championship.
84, you moved over to the NPC, right? Juniors.
Yep.
And you won that, light heavyweight, and then you placed third at the nationals the first time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. You go first.
Go ahead, Eric.
No, I was going to say I'm interested, and I don't want to go too far into the subject because that would probably take us down a whole road. But I'm interested that that you were into the bodybuilding, and then you got the Harley Davidson, and like you said, you went down the wrong path. You with the the bike club. Just real quickly, like what made you go in that direction? Was it some type of peer pressure, or did you think that lifestyle look good to you, or something? Like what kind of switched you into that direction real quickly?
Well, that's actually a great question because I think this is pertinent to a lot of your listeners who may be struggling with identity. And bodybuilding can become an identity. It can be a very positive identity depending on how you contextualize it in many respects and how you embody it. For me, as I said, being in the special ed class early on, formulated a mindset that I'm less than, I'm not the normal. I was fighting constantly. I was known as the bully killer because in special ed, there's a lot of kids that get bullied. And so lots of opportunities to beat on bullies. And I took full advantage of that. So I began to identify as that guy. I also had chopper bicycles. We had a gang called the Savage Skulls. We had little patches on our back. This was on 6th grade. We had chopper twin bicycles. And so I really like identified with the biker community. There was something about Hell's Angels, which I had an encounter with as a kid in Manhattan. I won't go into it, but it just like it left an impression. It left an impression as a disenfranchised kid that this is power, this is brotherhood, this is something cool. And so that was still there even when I was bodybuilding. And what happened was, I believe, once I started becoming a champion in bodybuilding, and granted, it was a teenage champion, no big deal, but it was a teenage champion, it began to change my mindset a little bit, but not quite enough. So that when I really started to become like, okay, I won the Teenage USA, maybe I can win the Southern USA, maybe I can win the Teenage Nationals and then go on to be a champion. Those questions led to answers like, no, you can't. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not those guys. You're this kid.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And when I got that first Harley Davidson, it was a 1954 panhead chopper. And I was riding that in high school. Got into a fight with the gym teacher, beat him up, and dropped out. That was my new path. That was it. So the incongruence, unconsciously, I was incongruent with being a champion. I was more congruent with being this loser, this 1%er. And so that was the path that I decided to take on when I was doing something that was incongruent. Yeah, it's great. I'm a bodybuilder, but I'm not really a champion. So let's go in the opposite direction. And then that same switch went back the other direction.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. How did you go back the other way and switch? What clicked off in your head saying, wait a second, wrong path, I got to go back to bodybuilding?
Great questions, because I was literally immersed in that lifestyle. I mean, fully immersed in it, other than full patching. I never full patch. I was asked to patch for the Pagans and vacillated. I didn't really want to. I didn't really, just like that. I don't know. I'd rather start my own club. I don't really want to. And then somebody, not only did my parents and my older brother Raymond, who was a Kung Fu instructor, still believe in me and knew I was headed down a bad path, but then somebody else came into my life that believed in me as well, and was smart and intelligent and attractive. And when they started believing in me, I don't need to go too into it, but when they started believing, I started to get a shift. It was a shift that started to take place. That was around the same time my mother bought me the full Tony Robbins Awaken the Giant Within tape series.
Oh,
and I started listening. Mm-hmm. I started listening to Tony Robbins. I started listening to, and I started reading books like Psycho-Cybernetics. Psycho-Cybernetics was a tremendous influence on how I was able to program my mind. Because I knew, even though I was enjoying and having fun with this biker community thing, I was having a blast, man. But I also knew it wasn't heading in the good direction. It wasn't really who I am. It wasn't who any human being is. We're better than that. And when I started reading that, I can actually change that. I have power over that. I don't have to think what I think. I can choose what I think. And I can program my mind through conscious thought and unconscious programming that I can move in whatever direction I want. So fortunately, all those things came into my life simultaneously, and I had bodybuilding to go back to. I didn't have to say, well, where am I going to go? If I'm not doing this, what am I going to do? It was easy. If I'm not doing this, I'm bodybuilding. And so I went right back to it, man.
Oh, man.
And it took some time, but it
did save your life. It did save your life, because God knows what could have happened to you if you continued that path.
No question. Most of my compadres from then either wound up in jail or fully immersed in the club or dead. And very few. I have one friend that joined the club who was right along there with me, and he's still alive and doing okay. But the rest of them, that would have been me. That would have been it, man.
Wow. Kevin, do you have anything you want to interject right here? Otherwise, I'll keep going with my.
No, it's all right. I mean, so obviously you won your pro card in 1986 at the
Correct
Nationals.
And I saw that on TV.
Yeah. I mean, the
I don't want to get into your posing. Your posing.
To make a note, you placed second in the lightweight to Phil Williams, and he ended up winning the overall. So you were close in 85, and just so people know, back then, one pro card for the overall winner. Right? No first to fifth, no handing them out like candy and things like that. And in 86, you defeated Gary Stridham. No, wait. No, I didn't. No, you won the overall. You won the overall lightweight, and Gary won the overall, right? Yeah. You won the lightweight, light heavyweight, and Gary
Right.
won the overall. So they gave you a pro card at the light
They did.
heavyweight.
So at that time, they had shifted it over. They were giving pro cards to all the class winners.
Okay, that's when it started. Yeah, yeah,
But I'll tell you what, it was a battle, and
yeah,
I took third in '84,
yeah.
which was a shock even to me, quite frankly, you know. But I look back, I'm like, yeah, you deserved that third. I looked pretty good. It was J.J. Marsh, Daryl Stafford, some other guys that were
All
really
guys who
good.
turned pro. It's amazing. Everybody kind of took their turns turning pro. All these guys turned pro.
Yeah.
But I will say this. After doing this third, second, and finally winning the light heavyweight division, I am damn glad I won that year, because the next year was Sean Ray, who won the light heavy.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And I'm like, well,
that would have been rough.
That would have been a challenge. But I will tell you this too, that oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the '86.
Yeah, 86. It's not so clear, but it's good.
I haven't seen that in years.
Look at that young buck with not gray hair.
Yeah.
By the way, if your listeners are interested, I can help them get the same dark, rich, thick hair I've got right now. It's easy. I can show them how to do it.
Tom, so this was the '86 when you won. Was this the year you did the routine to Phil Collins, In the Air Tonight? Was this the one?
Yeah.
Because that routine.
Oh, wait, maybe this wasn't that year.
Maybe it was the year before you did that. Maybe it was the year before you did that one.
Yeah.
When I saw that routine, that routine resonated with me so much. And that was one of my inspirations to become a great poser. I mean, because I always looked at bodybuilding not only as just building big muscles, but as being a living, breathing work of art.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what an amazing thing, like, of all the different types of arts that there are, sculpting and painting and all kinds of things, but this is a living, breathing sculpture that we're creating. So it should be presented as art to the audience.
Yeah.
I always felt that way, and you really embodied that for me, because you didn't, what a lot of people do, and this is a topic I want to get into a little bit more, today that I notice, and as the years have gone by, they use posing music as background music. It has nothing to do with what they're doing on stage.
Yeah.
It's just playing and they're just posing. But what you always did, and what I always did in any routine I ever did, and I won a bunch of best poser trophies, which are some of the greatest things, was you took your piece of music and that guided your poses, like you were telling a story to the song that you're posing to. And I think that is true. To me, we don't get to be up on stage. We train for hours and we diet and we do cardio and we kill ourselves. And then we're up on stage for really a short little period of time. We get to present ourselves for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you want to use that time to just really show the art, show your body at its best, to tell a story? And that's something that you always did in all your routines. And I want you to know what a tremendous influence that had on me, because even now I'm a posing coach also as well when it's called for. And I love creating routines to music that I always tell people to pick music, not just necessarily a song that you like, but a song that you feel.
Yeah.
That creates an emotion within you, whatever that emotion may be, and then pose and create that emotion through your posing. So that routine here tonight was just it was beautiful. I just love that routine, and it always resonated with me.
It is fascinating because when you look at the bodybuilders of the '80s and '90s, I mean, Lee Labrada, I mean, those guys, Francis Bonfato, I mean, they all moved. Everyone posed in a way that was Barry DeMay. I mean, just
Well, Ed Corney. I mean, look at Ed Corney.
That was my inspiration. It wasn't his physique that sent shivers up my spine. It was the way he moved. It was the way he presented it that literally sent shivers up my spine. And I made a decision that day. That's what I want to do. That's what I want people to feel. The same thing. I want them to feel that emotion. And so I appreciate that big time, and that you followed suit on that, because that's what we would do. You might even remember, I can remember being in, my gym, Maximum Health and Fitness, and we had the aerobics room. I can remember literally 2 months before either the Olympia or whatever the show was, working on a routine. And I also remember like music. Music was the key. It was just like, what did you feel? What did I feel? I picked music for I think one of the Olympias, '89 maybe, the Olympia. That was from the movie Black Rain. And because Black Rain had this like really great music, it had something that I felt, and we added some additional components to it. The next year was from the movie Lost Boys.
Oh yeah.
And just that's this song, I Still Believe, which was interesting. Let me share this quick story with you, because at that time when I was working and living in Manhattan, I was touring with Better Bodies. And Better Bodies was a gym. Better Bodies was also a management.
I was there too. I remember Brian Moss.
Brian Moss, Gladys Portuguese, Brian Moss, a lot of great. And they put together this like touring troupe of bodybuilders. There was a lot of great Ming Chu. I'm trying to remember Jeff. There was a whole bunch of guys that were good. They weren't all national level guys, but they were really good. And the women, like Gladys Portuguese, Carla Dunlap. We would tour. We were doing all the nightclubs in Manhattan. We were doing the Palladium, the Limelight, and we were doing these shows that were like gladiator, like dress. I mean, just costumes and stuff, and just like doing this thing. And it really taught me more of a greater stage presence, how to be dramatic on stage. But the interesting part about that is one of the Better Bodies guys that was involved in those shows was a guy named Tim Capella. And Tim Capella, the first time I met Tim, long hair, good physique, wasn't a bodybuilder, but he had a great physique, wore chains and stuff like that, and had a saxophone slung over his back when he went on stage. So I'm like, I didn't know Tim at the time. We got to know each other. But I'm like, I got to see what this guy's going to do up there. And I thought the saxophone was just a prop. And he pulls it off and he just starts wailing on the saxophone.
Wow.
It blew us away, right? And so he's the guy in the movie Lost Boys.
Okay.
Who does that song?
Yeah.
I Still Believe. And that song it wasn't because I knew Tim, but because that song resonated with me. I picked that for the Olympia. And you're absolutely right. I could listen to that and I could see the movement. I could see how it was resonating with the audience. And then you put the routine together to tell the story. And that's why you're a great coach, because you know that subtlety, man. You know how to help people bring that out. But it's rare today, isn't it?
Well, that's what I wanted to talk about, Tom. Kevin and I have discussed this on the show. We actually had Lee Haney on the show a few weeks ago. We discussed it with him. Do you feel that is something that is, I remember this routine too. Do you feel that's something that is just kind of missing or lost in the sport today? Does that disappoint you? Because it disappoints me.
I would say yes, absolutely. I would think it would have evolved even further in terms of the presentation part of it. I think we're relying too much just on muscle and less on aesthetics and less on showmanship. And again, just as we talked about, you're displaying a human sculpture made not out of clay, not out of stone, not out of anything else, but human flesh and blood. And when you could bring that to life on stage, it is so dramatic. I think the sport would grow even further if there was an emphasis on that. But so it is. Yeah, it's a little disappointing. I mean, guys like Kai Green, for example, tremendously talented poser. I love watching his stuff. It's really cool. And there's a few others. Mainly in the classic physique division, they're doing some of that now. I'm sure you're training some of these guys.
Yeah, it's more in the classic physique division. It's more, you see it now in the classic physique division much more, which is, to me, it's just really just a throwback to golden age body, if you want to call it. But do you think that because it used to actually be in bodybuilding competitions, the posing round was actually judged?
Yeah.
And it was part of your score. And then they threw that out. It's not part of the score anymore. So I'm wondering, do you think that it's because guys are just like, you know what? They don't score it anymore. I could just go up there and just do that. They don't pay much attention to it anymore. Do you think that might be what it is? Or
I think so. I think that has, because it's work. It's work. I mean, you can hear the music. You got to listen to it several times to kind of embody it. And then you have to like hit it on the beats, move with the music, tell the story. It's work. And I remember working with Ron Starantino, like in that posing room for a month or so. I mean, I would do an hour or two a day just on the routine. So it's a lot of work, but it helps you get in shape too. It helps you get more cut, obviously. You get harder. But I think because they no longer judge it, then it's no longer needed. Why do I want to put all that work in? They're not even judging it. But let me give you an example of like when that started to turn the tides, because I remember two examples. One was the first time I saw, and I can't remember who it was, King Kamala or somebody like that, just do boom, boom, and then like, give it to me.
I can't stand that.
And just like,
Yeah.
that
I
was
hate
it.
that.
Yeah.
That's all. That's you're demanding. I applaud you just because you got a decent physique. But also, I think it was '89 at the Niagara Pro Championship, which qualified. I took third. It qualified me for the Olympia. I was a huge fan of Albert Beckles, and still am a huge fan of Albert Beckles, and thought he had he wasn't tremendously aesthetically appealing, but the guy, his arms and the shape, he was always
rock solid.
He's
made of stone.
And he was so much older when I was already competing with him.
But he was like made of stone. Like he just looked like solid, like rock.
And he was one of those guys. When I was a teenager, I saw him guest pose and went up and shook his hand, and he did a bicep for me. I was like, oh my God,
Biceps,
I ran out of the
Yeah.
Crazy biceps.
So at the Niagara, I was ahead of him going into the posing round by 1 point. And we used to call it the Albert, and that was one of my best routines. It was the one I took to the Olympia, and it was a great routine, polished, refined, all of it. And Albert did his usual, we called it the Albert Beckles shuffle. He would do the shuffle.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Like he was dancing a little bit.
Yeah.
And then he would shuffle, and then he'd pose. And Albert Beckles beat me in the posing round, which gave him the first place. And it was at that point, I was just like, wow. Albert Beckles posed better than me. And that night, I was like a little dumbfounded by it, but I also understand Albert deserved to win. He's a legend. I never complained a bit about it. I didn't care, but it was something that opened my eyes to. It's just like, hey, you know what? You can put all the work into it. It's not really going to amount to any kind of points. It's just not. You know what I mean? So do it for the audience. Do it for the love of the sport. Do it for bringing that sculpture to life. That was it.
I'll tell you something. I'm just going to bring this up to close the posing thing. There's Albert.
Yeah.
So Tom, there was a show back when we still both lived on Long Island. It was in 1989, I believe, and it was the Long Island Open. Mm. And you were a judge. You were one of the judges at that show, and I competed against Ron Starantino in his same class.
Wow.
And I remember that, and I was very big on the whole posing thing. Ron actually won that day. I came in sixth. You later said to me, I had you fourth or third. So I was just like, thank you. But I did a routine I started off actually, what I always like to do is start with very like slow classical posing. Like I did classical posing to me, like you did, long before classic physique existed. So I'd start slow, and then all of a sudden I'd switch up the music to something that would get the audience going and really into it. And so I did a routine to slow song, and then I went into Rhythm Nation by Janet Jackson.
Oh, great song. Love that.
And when I was doing that routine, the judging panel, I don't know if I couldn't tell who was there, was standing up and clapping along with the music. And I got almost like a standing ovation from the crowd from that routine. The routine was off the wall. It was great.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't win the show, I wasn't in the top 5, even though I felt like I should have been. It was one of my greatest moments on stage ever, to know that I affected the judges and the audience to the degree that they were clapping along with the song and standing up. One of the greatest memories I ever had. And that to me is what, like, I just don't understand how guys can ignore posing at this point in time. It's just, I don't understand it.
But I want to, number one, I want to say Rhythm Nation. That was such a great choice of music. It was so good. And those last 30 seconds of having that come on, because we only had a minute. In the pro level, you can go as long as you want until they throw you off the stage. But as an amateur, it's like 1 minute. You didn't have much time to do a music change. So to be able to do that and to bring it to life was awesome, man. I remember that contest. I remember that, exclusively. I mean, it was a great contest because I knew somebody. I knew you. I knew Ronnie. I think Tony Rick. Other guys, Mike Yablon.
Mike Yablon was in it. It was his first show. Yeah.
Yep, yep. I
Yeah.
mean,
And that was
that was
back
great,
when
man.
I did that show back when you owned Maxim Health and Fitness, which is
Mm,
a gym that I
mm.
worked at. You had two locations. Um, and I don't want to go too far into that because Kevin doesn't know about it. The audience doesn't know, but I work, you opened up the first Maxim Health and Fitness. We used to be something called like Whitehall Gym or something like that.
White ball.
Yeah, and you took it over. And I went in one day and with my friend, and I worked out there. And you brought me into the office and you said, "Hey, Eric, you want a job?" And I was just like, "Are you kidding me? I could work here?" You were just like, "Yeah, I want you to work here," which was one of the greatest experiences, ever to be working at the gym. Because you were there, Mike was there, your brother. By the way, Kevin, his brother, one of his brothers, Mike, is an identical twin, like identical
Yeah, I
twin.
read about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mike was there, got to, and so that was, and I met so many great people there. It was a great gym. And then you opened up the other one in Belmore, on Merrick Road, which I don't even know what it is now. It turned into Powerhouse and something else. But uh, that was also just a great experience working with you. It taught me a lot. I loved working because you were not like, you were never like a boss. You were just like a supporter. Like you were just like, I want good people here. I want my members to like the staff. I want my members to enjoy that. And it was just such a great experience. So I just want to say thank you again for, way back then for trusting in me and having faith in me to come, work for you at
Yeah,
those
you
times.
earned that. You earned that. You had a great presence. You were respectful. You were even as a young guy, you were helping other guys. I remember that, man. And when if you're looking for that, if you recognize that, it's just like it becomes apparent. And that was you. And you stayed with us like the entire time, all the way through Belmore, all of it. And I tell you, man, we had a great crew. We just had some really great people. I remember reading one of Trump's book. He says, hire great people and trust them. Of course, he's changed that now. He says, hire great people and don't trust them. You know,
Well, he's had reasons why. He has reasons
but yeah,
why.
man, and just help guide in many respects. That's all it was. It was just helping to guide. But that was a great experience at Whitehall Gym. I was training a client there, Jed, who became my business
I
partner.
remember Jed. I remember Jed.
Jed was a
I
hoot,
remember
wasn't he?
Jed. 100% remember Jed.
He was
Glasses.
awesome, man. He
He
was
was a lot of
absolutely
fun. I
awesome.
remember because when you opened up the second Maxim Health and Fitness in Belmore, it was just like a building with nothing in it. And I sat in there in the freezing cold in the winter, signing people up, a
Yeah.
pre-sale that you did. And I would be in freezing. I'd have like hot cocoa with me and whatever. And people would come in and I'd have to convince them, trust me, this place is going to be unbelievable. This is going to be an amazing gym. So I was, and then Jed would come over my house after the day was over and he'd pick up all the receipts and the money and whatever from me. So I remember
That was
Jed.
Jed. That was
That
Jed.
was
Yeah,
Jed.
I remember that. That place was not to get off on it, but it was a swimming school. So it had
Yeah.
a huge built-in
Oh,
pool.
yeah.
We took on more than we could chew with that place, man. We had to tear the entire back wall down to get a bulldozer in to get
Yeah.
like 'cause the pool wasn't just a pool. It was elevated 2 feet, concrete all the way around it, and it was just. But it did come out nice, didn't it? The equipment was
Oh,
cool.
that gym, even to this day, the equipment in that gym I loved. I like had amazing equipment, and man, did we have so many hungry bodybuilders there. John
Unbelievable. Everybody
Olympio
dancing.
and everybody. I mean, it was
Yep.
just we had so many people. And you also would bring in, I remember you brought in John Torelli for a seminar, Matt Mendenhall,
Mhm.
Sean Ray. We'd have seminars there. What a great place that was.
Matt Mendenhall came in. It was several other. I
Yeah.
mean, I really wanted it to be that place where it's just like, hey, you know what? We can come, we can train. It's clean, it's respectful. Everyone respects everyone else. But at the same, and remember, and some of your viewers may remember a guy named Sean Perrine, who was the editor in chief of Muscle and
I
Fitness.
worked under Sean Perrine hired me to write for Flex for
Really?
years.
I didn't know
Yes, I
that.
was
That's
close with Sean since age 17. We met at a bodybuilding contest. We became friends. We stayed in contact. And then we always knew what each other was doing. And then he became
Mm,
the editor-in-chief of Flex. One day I was training in Gold's Venice because I used to live over there. I lived in Marina Del Rey
mm.
for years, and that's where I trained. I saw Sean in the gym. We were caught up and everything, and he said, "Hey, when I get back in town, I'm going to email you. I want you to write for Flex Magazine."
Wow.
And he hired me to write for Flex. I wrote my own column, Ask Merlin, and articles every single week. And he loved my stuff. I was so happy. And his tragic loss was just so hard. That guy was he
That's
loved bodybuilding, and he was such a great person.
Yeah, he was a great person. I remember his mother, and I think it was his sister trained at that Belmont, at the Belmont. That's where we got to know each other a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because, you know, there were so many great members, and it was hard to remember everyone. And I remember him and his mom, but vaguely. And he reintroduced himself at some point to me, and I can't remember how or where, when he was doing Muscle and Fitness, the editor-in-chief. And then invited me to I haven't been to the Olympia in years, you know, after competing, and invited me to the Olympia. And Dawn and I went. We were up in the Muscle and Fitness booth. It was a great time. And then, you know, again, he's such a guy who was so loyal to friends. If you had the qualifications, if you knew what you were doing, he wasn't just going to give you that column. He knew you were freaking good at what you do, and you know the sport, and you've got a great reputation, and that's why you got it. Not because he just wanted to give it to a friend, you know?
No, not at all.
That was a tragic loss.
He filed, yeah, but it was a tragic loss. I miss Sean to this day. I have more stuff I want to ask you, but I want to know if Kevin has anything he wants to jump in with.
Just some small things. Your best results were at the Niagara Falls. You placed third twice. And the first time in '89, Ron Love won, Nimrod King. And then you placed ahead of Steve Brisbois and Selwyn Cottrell, and the list goes on. John Defenders placed 12th. And then you did the Olympia. Obviously, you placed 16th. You know.
Yeah. I was also.
Yeah. To be fair, it couldn't have been one of the most competitive eras ever. You know, Lee Haney's like, you know, breaking down walls. Yes, Gaspari, Labrada running after him. So, you know, it's still I believe it's an honor competing in that era, you know, wherever you place, right? And then in 1991, you went on that famous European tour, okay? So everybody was hungry, knowing Lee Haney's trying to go for his 8th. Will it happen? Will he lose it? You know, Dorian Yates was climbing up the ranks. He won in England, right? And, you know, you placed in the top 10, you know, 11th. You placed 3rd at Niagara Falls, Night of Champions 6th. How did it feel going on that European tour? Like, was it like, you know, like week or every 2 weeks competing? It wasn't easy. I mean, you were placing ahead of Milo sometimes, you know, Milo Sarcev and all these guys, you know. I mean, they're fantastic results, you know.
You know, that's a really great question. I appreciate you asking it, because I won't share them all, certainly, but I'll share 1 or 2 stories around that, because that was a great experience for me.
Wow.
Number one, I got invited because I was 16. I was an also ran. There were several others that were 16.
Yeah.
You know, that was the cutoff, you know what I mean? At the Olympia. And so justifiably, I shouldn't have been invited to the Grand Prix Tour. I was invited to the Grand Prix Tour because I got a standing ovation at that Olympia for the routine.
Wow.
So the European guys that were promoting the show said, Tom, you have to be on this tour. You've got to be on. We got to bring this routine. We got to bring your physique and this routine to these Europeans, right?
Yeah.
And I hadn't planned on it. In fact, you know, my first wife and I were like struggling, because when you train for an Olympian, you train for this and this and this, and your whole life is built around that. Your relationship can struggle a little bit. Yeah. So we were planning a trip. We were planning a trip to Jamaica. And then I got that was like the next weekend we were leaving. And I got asked to do the Grand Prix Tour. So I had to explain, which wasn't easy. Like, listen, this is an opportunity. You know, what do you think? And she said, oh, you got to go. So I did go. It was grueling, to say the least, because really it's only about a 2-week period, and you're competing like every other day. Wow. It's like 7 contests, and you're traveling, and you're on a bus.
Yeah.
But it was a great opportunity to be on the bus with Ron Love and Vince Taylor and Milo Sarcev. Milo, myself, and Sonny Schmidt became very tight. We were like a trio. We were always hanging out together.
Yeah.
And even though I could barely understand a word that either one of them said, was probably why we bonded so well.
Yeah.
You know,
Milo speaks a lot better now. He works. He
Yeah.
trains people at my gym, so he's much
Oh,
better
yeah.
with it.
He's doing pretty good. But Sonny, the only word, I hope you don't mind a little profanity in your show. The
Yeah,
only
go
word you
for
would
it.
understand. Sonny was just like, he would be like, oh, fucking, you know, no, fucking. And it was like, all right, I understand that, but I have no clue what the context is.
Wow. Yeah.
That's
But I have
hilarious.
some funny stories around that. But one of the interesting, the contests were grueling because you were constantly competing and you got to try and stay on a diet. And you couldn't always stay on a diet. We were staying at hotels sometimes that weren't really accommodating to what we were trying to eat. So a couple of things. One, it used to piss everyone off because Vince Taylor was winning everything.
Yeah, he was on a roll. Yeah, yeah.
And he would get on the bus with pizza. We're like, you son of a bitch. I mean, everyone wanted to kill him, right? We love Vince, but we wanted to kill him because he's eating pizza. We're all trying to stay on a tight diet. But there was one moment in Italy where we were staying at this almost like a little town. There was a little villa in this town, and there were separate little villas. So we were all staying in little separate villas, and we were in where they were serving food. They had a little buffet for everybody, and the food wasn't terrible. It wasn't bad. But I remember, like, everybody was just like, man, there's no gym, there's no place to pump up, you know. So a bunch of us, probably half, there was probably 8 or 10 of us that decided, let's just at least go out for a power walk. It was a warm summer night. We're in this place in Italy. Let's go out and just freaking power walk. So there's like 8 or 10 of us, right? And we're all got our shirts off and just shorts on. And we're in Olympia condition. And I remember we're pounding like down the street. And there's no one on the streets. And all of a sudden we walk back. There's this group of teenagers, a bunch of Italian teenagers smoking their cigarettes, you know, they're all like 16, 17 years old, hanging out, a bunch of girls, a bunch of guys. And all of a sudden, here comes this alien of 10 bodybuilders. You can I mean, you should have seen their faces. I was mesmerized watching these guys. They were just like, they had no idea what to think of this thing because it was like one juggernaut of muscular bodies that just kept moving together in unison. And I'll never forget their faces. I made a special note. If I saw one of them, I'd still recognize them today. That was a fun experience, man.
Tom, do you realize if that was in this day and age, they all would have taken out their phones. They would have videoed you guys walking by, and it would have gone viral. There'd be 8 billion views.
You're right.
An army of bodybuilders.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would be like army of bodybuilders invade Italy. It would be.
Yeah. So obviously the Olympia was first, right? Sorry, I cut in. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no problem.
The Olympia was first, and then there was the European tour, obviously.
That's right. So first you compete in the Olympia.
Yeah. So Lehane won the
invited on the tour. I've always wanted to be invited on the tour. I've always wanted to do the tour. So I did that twice.
Yeah. So
and
Lehane won his 8th. Dorian placed 2nd, and Vince 3rd, and then he dominated the European tour. You know, maybe thinking that in 1992 that he would win, and obviously Dorian came in and just, you know, blew everybody away. Unfortunately, if I did my research correctly, you had a mountain bike accident?
Yeah. So after the 91 Olympia,
how old were you? Just to have a timeline.
That's when what's that?
How old were you?
30, I think I was 31.
Wow. See how young they were?
I was still
31.
Still young, still had years ahead of in the bodybuilding world. But 2 things. One, it was just like, I was starting to think, you know, maybe New York, or, you know, maybe there's other things since I was traveling all over the world at the time because I was doing the TV show as well at that time. We started the TV show in 87 called
MuscleSport. Yeah, MuscleSport USA.
And that ran for 16 years. So we did all the amateur shows. We did a couple of pro shows, but mostly amateur. And I was the host along with a guy named Steve Stone, who was the Northern USA champion. Great guy. Steve was another great human being with a great heart. Yeah, Steve Stone, when we would be at these contests, because we were in our suit and ties, because that's what Fox Sports wanted us to wear. Yeah. So we'd be at these contests, and we'd be walking down the hall. We got to get on camera. We got to get on camera, like right now. You know what I mean? We're running late, and we're walking down. You couldn't get anywhere with Steve because Steve was so popular and so in demand for advice, like you, Merlin. I mean, it's just like, I can't even imagine walking through the Olympia with you without like being constantly interrupted by someone asking for advice. And that was Steve. He was just like that. And he would give everybody as much time as he possibly could until I dragged them by the suit and said, we got to go. So Steve was great, but the show was a big hit. It was one of the only real bodybuilding show. It was body sculpting, but that was more workouts and bodybuilding. This was covering bodybuilding competitions. So at that time I was doing that, still living in New York, just finished the Olympia, decided New York wasn't where I wanted to be. One of the shows that we were covering was the Colorado State Championship. So I had come to Colorado for that event, and I met this special someone who's still in my life 30-something years later. Dawn's my wife. I met her that night at the contest. She was working the booth for a gym called Flex Gym. And it was almost love at first sight. It really was one of those across the room, eyes met. Pretty much that was it. I mean, the rest of it's a blur, quite frankly. So I moved to Colorado, and I still was planning on competing. But if I'm really honest, and this is important for other people as well, to listen to your instincts. I knew after competing at 2 Olympias and not finishing in the top 10 that I was going to have to go to extreme measures, and who knows, maybe even kill myself to try and get into that top 5. I wasn't going to be satisfied. Competing in my first Olympia was like, holy shit, I'm in the fucking Olympia. This is incredible. This was one of my lifetime goals, just being there, just being in it. Yeah. But once you're in it, once you've been there, the only thing left is to win it. And you got to get into that top 5 if you're going to win it. And I knew after the second year, I'm like, you know what? Maybe I don't have what it takes. Maybe I'll never get that big. Maybe I don't want to do what's necessary to do that. And so I was already vacillating with the idea that maybe it's over. Maybe I should just throw in the towel. But I wasn't really, there was part of my ego that wasn't really willing to do that yet. And so we went mountain biking with a dear friend of mine, Eros from Switzerland, who had been my interpreter on the Grand Prix tour and all the seminars. I spent another month after the Grand Prix tour just doing seminars and guest postings after that in Europe. He was my interpreter, and we became dearest friends. So he was in Colorado staying with me with his girlfriend, and his girlfriend happened to be the women's Swiss mountain bike champion. Oh, God. And so they talked us into going mountain biking. I'm not a mountain biker. I'm 215 pounds. What am I doing on a mountain bike? And she humiliated me so bad going up. I mean, it was just like, I was like standing still. She was just, wah, wah. And so I'm going to get her on the way down. And my ego got the best of me. The front tire locked into a rut. And I went over the bars and I compound fractured the wrist. Oh, God. Broken clavicle, 3 broken ribs. It was pretty bad. And when I got up from having been thrown over the bar, I went to lean back on this hand and found it was bent completely like back this way. So needless to say, it was going to be a while before I could come back. Yeah. And I guess it was about 2 months into the recovery, 30 pounds down in weight. I was still doing the TV show, and we were covering an event where Dorian was the guest poser. And when Dorian came out to guest pose, remember I just saw him at the Olympia a few months earlier. When he came out to guest pose, he was something like 30 pounds bigger than he was just a few months ago. Yeah. And I looked at that and I said, okay, I got to put the 30 pounds on that I've lost. And another 30 pounds on top of that? Yeah.
He shut down a lot of careers. He shut down a lot of careers, you know.
That was the end.
Yeah. He made people think of retirement. You know.
Definitely made think of everybody thought of retiring.
Because you 1 minute you're aiming for a guy like Samir Banu, and then all right, Lee Haney, and you know there's Leela Brother running around, and Rich Gaspari, you know, all these guys. Right. And then all of a sudden Dorian Yates comes out. And from 91, he just exploded. Kevin, all right. Sure. Kevin came second to him, Levroni, at his first Olympia, but the size difference was just it
was the next generation. Here's a picture. I just happen to have it. My dog knocked over one of my framed pictures, broke the glass. But this is the picture. I don't know if you can see this. There's Dorian in the background. Yeah. And that was me at the Olympia competing with Dorian.
Yeah.
So after that I saw him something like 30 pounds. It was the next generation.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, the next generation, have at it. I'll still be a
If,
fan.
if
That was it.
only the classic bodybuilding division existed back then, you could own that.
Yeah.
That would have been
Because that's where
nice.
your physique fell. That's where your posing fell. That's where your aesthetics fell.
Mm.
And that would be something that would have been something spectacular to see you doing that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree
I
with you. I
love
mean,
it.
I always figured you retired because you didn't want to
Go.
probably do
Yeah.
what it takes to
Right.
get to that
Right.
level. You didn't want to destroy your health.
Yeah.
And who knows? If you would have gained 30 pounds, you might have lost the type of physique you had and not even liked it anymore. Your waist would have
It's
gotten big,
true.
Yeah. That's
and
what
you
I was
might not
about.
have even,
Yeah.
wanted it to look like that. And it would have, made you looking in the mirror might not have made you happy. So you probably did the right thing, although you were still young, which, sucked because you probably had your best years ahead of you. But I think you
I
achieved
agree.
pretty much all you really could have wanted to achieve. I mean, you two Olympias,
Yeah.
and all the things that came out of bodybuilding for you,
Mm.
like doing the TV show and being asked to go on the European tour. I mean,
Yeah.
regardless of you didn't win the Olympia, you were still one of the best bodybuilders in the world at the time with
Yeah.
the millions of people lifting weights. So therefore, to me, I mean, your career was stellar.
I mean,
Thank you. Yeah.
going that extra mile, sometimes when we look at the past, nobody really comes out better.
No.
It always goes the other way.
Yeah. And I'm happy that, it's just like I still study martial arts. I've been a martial arts practitioner for 40, 50, almost 50 years now. I just got honored. You mentioned a book, but it's not a book. It's a magazine called The
Magazine.
Deadly Art of Survival.
Yeah,
And
talk about that.
they did
Yeah.
like a 4 or 5 page
Go ahead.
feature and put me on the cover, which I was tremendously. It was like, okay, this isn't a bodybuilding magazine. This is a martial arts magazine. So to be on the cover, I was really tremendously honored by that. But if I'm also honest again, it's sort of like one of those things where it almost, and again, this is something I've always wrestled with, and I think a lot of people tend to wrestle with, which is sort of this imposter syndrome. I looked at that magazine when I was asked to be on the cover of Deadly Art of Survival. I didn't know it because I wasn't following martial arts. I was studying it and practicing it, but I wasn't following it per se. As far as I knew, Black Belt magazine was still the #1 magazine. Deadly Art is. And I looked at all the covers. I looked online. I'm like, oh man, these guys are like serious, like everyday martial artists, including one of my early Sifus, Grandmaster Alan Lei, who started the Kung Fu Wusu Association that I studied at when I was young. And I'm like, Grandmaster Alan Lei's on the cover, and they want me on the cover. I'm like, I felt like an imposter. And I asked the guy. I said, listen, I said, every one of these guys have a gi, like a uniform. I said, I haven't had a gi in 30 years, man. And he's like, can you get one? I said, yeah, I can get one.
That's a
So I
great
called
shot.
Raymond, who was my instructor, and he sent me his gi. We were about the same rank when it was all said and done. But yeah, that was really quite an honor, and I thought it was pretty cool to be on something other than a bodybuilding magazine cover. It was really, it's pretty cool. But the reason I brought that up was because I'm happy to not have a tremendous amount of injuries, to not necessarily be in the condition that Ronnie's in today.
Yeah.
I know he looked back and said I would still do everything the same, and I get it.
Yeah.
But life has to be quite a struggle for him right now.
Yeah,
And I'm glad that I don't have to go through that.
Yeah.
We don't want to keep you much longer because you've been
Oh,
so incredible with your time. So a couple of things that I wanted to ask. First thing, we don't have to go crazy. It's another question we talked to extensively, and Lee Haney has a lot of opinions about it, and probably most of the guys who were, at their best in the 80s, 90s, and maybe early 2000s. What's your opinion of where bodybuilding? I mean, I know that the classic physique division, obviously that's changed changed things and given that type of physique an outlet, and it's become very, very popular. Sometimes even more popular than open bodybuilding. What do you think about open bodybuilding these days? Do you think, because Lee Haney feels like bodybuilding has lost its way. It's not back, you're talking about the physiques like Zane, and you're talking about, people, Francis Benfato, Bob Paris, even Lee Haney, who was a monster, but still with a 28-inch waist or 20.
Yeah.
Do you feel that bodybuilding has lost its way in a sense, or do you feel like this was just the normal evolution?
I think it's the normal evolution. I don't like the direction, but I can't say it's lost its way because it seems like the normal evolution. It's just like bigger, 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 bigger. It's going to come at a cost. It's going to. Waists are going to get bigger. Aesthetics are going to dissolve and not be as cared about. So I think, I mean, I would love to see, you see some of these AI models, and it's the AI is ruining it for all of us because you look at this, it's like there's a guy there's an AI model that is huge and still aesthetic. Yeah. That's the physique we should be going for. But it's almost impossible to create that with that small waist, that tapered look, that still handsome, rugged look, not just, I don't know what's going on up there. But I think it's the direction it was destined to go in many respects. I don't know what's going to change it. But I'm a little disappointed because I think, when I look at some of the guys today, and I don't name any names or anything, but I look at some of the guys today and I try and look at it from the perspective of, and I suppose this could be said even in my day, because the average person who didn't bodybuild could look at my physique then and say, oh my God, it's too much, it's ugly. But I'm looking at some of the physiques today and I'm just saying it's not attractive. Yeah. It's just not good looking. And I don't know when the big horse stance became popular with the arms too far and the legs.
Motorcycle stance. Yeah.
Where that is as far from the statue of David, which is the ultimate aesthetic model as you can possibly get. And so just like, I'm even wondering if today's bodybuilders who don't on the surface look attractive to me, certainly not to the average individual, if they changed how they present themselves, change the angles, don't stand in that way because it's completely unnatural. And I get that that's how it's being judged today, but it's completely unnatural. I think it would re-evolve into something a little bit more aesthetic, just a little bit more aesthetic, the presentation of it. But they're just not attractive looking bodies anymore. And that's where it's a little disappointing.
But Eric, can I just say something?
Sure. Go ahead.
On the same subject, going to Kevin sitting on the sofa watching Netflix and flipping through his mobile, I saw a glimmer of hope this week. I don't know how he didn't win the Tampa Pro, but
I know you're talking about Quentin.
Look at this guy, man. If this guy doesn't,
he's a throwback.
If he doesn't win the Olympia in the future, I don't know who will. Look at that, Quincy Beastwood, they call him.
I agree. I mean, that's right up there with Flex Wheeler.
Look at that.
That's like Flex Wheeler, Sean Roden. I think that he actually needs to be a little harder.
Yeah.
The guy who beat him was in better condition, but his potential is through.
Isn't that incredible? I mean, when you think everything's going the wrong way, a guy like this pops up,
Yeah. And that's exactly where it's got to start going. And if guys like that are judged, Sean Roden had a great physique, man. It's a shame what happened to him, but he really did have a great aesthetic physique. I thought he could have been harder too.
Listen,
this guy needs to be hard.
This guy he just has to get spot on, and he can be up there. Right? He just has to qualify for the Olympia.
That's a beautiful physique. That's a beautiful physique.
Unbelievable.
And you can even see in his presentation that he also knows how to kind of angle his body a little bit and not hit everything so straight on. Yeah. You can see what he does with his legs right there, the way he stands on one. Yeah. He knows how to pose it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just that little shift of the leg makes all the difference in the world.
I mean,
aesthetically, it creates that shape, that line. Yes. Instead of just whoop.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's the other thing too, is about today's bodybuilders in many respects. It's like, I get these guys are like freaking unbelievable. I would freak out. Like the first time I saw Jay Cutler, I was like, holy shit, freaking like a He-Man doll. You know what I mean? Yeah. But, standing here like this and then going right to this, it doesn't seem to be that much pop. It's not like.
That's what's happening today. I don't see a lot of change in the muscles when they pose them.
Right.
The striations, today they just seem to be, there's a few exceptions, But today, the muscle almost seems to, you remember back in, your day and whatever, every pose you could see the muscle delineations and the striations and the separation really changed every time they hit a shot. And now
Yes.
it's almost like nothing really happens.
Yeah.
Really, when like the chest doesn't have those cross striations all the way through, the delts when they
Right.
post them just stay like big mounds instead of seeing the striations. It's kind of like it's kind of changed. I miss that.
And
But
something
that's
I
just my
noticed,
opinion.
even the bicep, it's fuller now. It's not the peak. That peak is gone. I think the last
Oh my God.
bodybuilder that really had a peak was Ronnie Coleman, a decent,
Yep.
it's
I mean, that was one of the things that blew me away about Albert Beckles. That bicep peak
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
was, you
Lee
don't see that.
Priest,
You just don't see that anymore.
you don't see like Lee Priest, that
Yep.
Robbie Robinson's bicep
yeah,
peak.
yeah.
Yep.
Even Arnold,
Yep.
it was full, and you get that. Even when I was seeing your footage, I noticed. I made a point of it's either it's the way they're training or the diet or whatever what's happening. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know, the weights they're lifting. Maybe they're not concentrating so much on that
Well, it's
peak.
also the things that they take nowadays.
Yeah,
Probably too much is,
Yep.
that's why it's
I
very
will say,
unfortunate. We're seeing a lot of
I
people
will
die.
say this, Eric, you'd know. I mean, it's just like, at least, the guys are still, they're huge, they're thick as shit. I mean, just unbelievable. Um, but at least they seem to have gotten the distended belly under control
yeah,
Yeah,
a little
that
bit.
was a problem.
to a large degree. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So
But I think it's the judges that have to direct the athletes. Like if let's say you
definitely.
get, not to mention anybody, two or three guys placed in the top three, and they're they look like blocks, and their waists are a bit wide, and and then you get a guy like Quinton. Let's just say Quinton in fourth or fifth. They have to award these bodybuilders and let the other bodybuilders say, wow, how come this guy placed in first now and we're getting pushed
Mm.
down? Should we change something, or could it be pressure from their sponsors that they want them to look like freaks? I mean, I don't know.
And that would seem like an odd thing, because it seems to be like the sponsors, the supplement companies, um, even the exercise equipment people would want to appeal. Now, granted, they're never going to appeal to the bodybuilding community is never going to appeal completely to the masses.
Yeah.
Let's trickle it down a little bit to the younger guys who are getting into it, who want to be bodybuilders, want to have a greater physique. We'll use some of those supplements. We'll use some of that equipment. We'll go to these particular gyms. It's just like, it seems like it would behoove these sponsors to have athletes that look more, not necessarily easily attainable. I
Yeah.
mean, when I saw Steve Mahalik, it wasn't easily obtainable. When I saw those pictures by Artie Zeller, it wasn't easily obtainable, but it was obtainable. Today, it's just like, even if I could do it, which seems like an impossibility, do I want to look like that?
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the sponsors, maybe it is, but I think honestly, I think somewhere in the organizations, the NPC, the IFBB, we have to find the courage to say no more. We're changing it, and you might not like it because you're bigger and more muscular than this guy, but this guy's going to win because this is the model we're going to put out there. This is what we want to see as our champion, as our Mr. Olympia should be the ideal.
Yeah.
It should be the personification of perfection.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing incredibly muscular. I admire what these guys do and how they look, but it's just like, it just doesn't seem like,
I mean,
it seems like the organization has to find some courage to say, hey, enough of this. Let's get it back down. I mean, look at the lineup with Samir. By the way, competing with Samir Bannout was such an honor for me, man. I got to tell you, and again, your listeners would know Samir as a former Mr. Olympia, and just one of those characters. He was a character, man. And the aesthetics of that physique should be the ideal. Granted, if you could do that same aesthetic look, but with 30 pounds more muscle, it'd be ideal. It'd be the model today, and that's what this guy looked like.
He's still preaching about it. I mean, Samson Dauda, he has that physique. It's not as conditioned that maybe people expect him to be, but it is tapered down, and he doesn't have that gut coming out or anything like that. But I still think that, I mean, Lee Haney, to prove a point, he cut himself off from the NPC. He's doing his own thing now, you know. So
Really?
yeah, he's sanctioning his own show with
Wow.
his training certificate. I forget what
Yeah,
it's
it's
called.
a certification program
Yeah,
now.
yeah. He this year he's doing it on his own in November. So because he's really been preaching about it. And I don't know, I think the judges should put the athletes in the right direction. And
Yeah.
you know, I mean, even if you go back when Arnold was at his peak doing films, people would see him and say, "Wow, look at that physique." But they knew it you have to do something special to hit that type of physique. You have to be a genetic freak.
Definitely.
You have to dedicate a lot of time in the gym, and it's not something that you can walk around with every day. It's something you have to be focused on it. But then, if you remember, Rocky 1 and Rocky 2, Stallone was like, not bad. Then he came
Yes.
out in Rocky 3, chiseled, and then Rocky 4, even more, and people freaked out. Everybody wanted to go to the gyms because I think Stallone had a huge impact on the fitness
Yeah,
industry.
I agree.
Because, he was looking, I mean, Franco was training him as well, I mean,
Right.
so,
But it
but
was obtainable. It was
he had a
realistic
that
and
everybody
Yeah,
liked.
he's only
accurate.
160 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
All
wasn't
right,
big.
he blew both of his pecs, training as well. But he had a physique that he made people even want to go to the gym even more. Back then when everything
Yep.
was chrome and all these gyms started popping up everywhere. So that you can tell what kind of like Frank Zane was always on the covers, more than Arnold.
Mhm.
I mean Bob Paris was like, you know, everywhere as well. He didn't get the results that maybe he deserved, but that's what people wanted to see, and that's what sold, and that's what made money to the weeders as well. These type of
Agreed.
physiques, you know.
I have a feeling Joe would roll over in his grave if he could see today's bodybuilders. I don't know. I think he'd be a little disappointed. Um,
Probably.
but I tell you what, when the first time I met Frank Zane I was competing in the teenage Southern USA, and he was the guest poser. And I went out onto the beach. It was Lake Charles, Louisiana. I went out on the beach and just laid on the beach. There was no one out there. And here comes this guy strolling up, and I look and I'm like, oh my God, freaking Frank Zane! I'm a teenager. This guy's my idol. And when he was so friendly and so helpful and encouraging. When he walked away, I literally said to myself, I think I could beat that guy. he was so like not impressive. But then he guest posed the next day and he looked fantastic.
Yeah.
I was like, how's that possible? He looked like a fit, muscular human being, not a freak. And I'm not saying we go back there.
Yeah.
Frank's not big enough by any means, But I think we need to find a way. And again, the organizations have to find the courage, I think, to say, hey, you know what? We need something. And maybe it's one athlete. Maybe it's this guy.
Yeah.
One athlete to kind of disrupt.
Yeah.
We need a disruptor right now to change the course.
Yeah. What do you think? I want to ask you this, Tom, then I'll let Eric continue. Barry DeMay, when he placed third at the Olympia, if he didn't get that pec tear, do you think that he was going to be the new golden boy of the Weeders? That blonde look.
It might have been that. I don't know if he. And I knew Barry pretty well, and I love Barry. I thought he was great. He was a.
I met him a couple of times. Yeah, great guy.
He was funny. He was always jovial, always, man.
Yeah.
And he might have, with a little work, he had some glaring weaknesses. His lower back, his waistline was a little too long. Arms could have been bigger. There's some things, you know what I mean? His calves had a weird shape. They were long, they were good, but they were long. But with a little more muscle, a little bit more refinement, might have been able to win the Olympia, but certainly had the look of someone that would be the cover model that would inspire. I think he did several covers, but that would inspire others to follow the sport and get involved in the sport and want to look like that.
I mean,
man, I was competing with the guy and I wanted to look like that.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Bumstead, I mean, classic physique. Everybody loves him. He's still the most popular bodybuilder in the world at the moment. I imagine if he's cut off a bit from classic and moved up to the open class, he would have placed in the top. I mean, I don't know.
You hit on something interesting, and I think I saw this or read this, and maybe it was something even you said, Eric, was that I think, you got the Olympia, you got the bodybuilding class, you got the classic physique division. You know what? Let's make it one Mr. Olympia. Let the classic physique compete with
I've
the
been
other
saying that all the time.
bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the way to send the message. Hey, you know what? And again, keep in mind, this is a kind of a radical, but if trans athletes want to compete in bodybuilding, let them have their own category. Fine, compete in bodybuilding, but you're not competing as a trans man in the women's division.
No.
That's I hope that doesn't happen. But I'm just using that as an example that if you want to compete in that division, you've got your own division. Fine, have at it. If you want to compete in the bodybuilding division and be an absolute freak of nature and blow people away because of that, great. But if you want to be a classic physique athlete, fantastic, be there. But let's find out who's the physique that people really want based on the new judging criteria. And maybe Bumstead would be the overall Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Because I think he's got that could do it, that could win it.
Maybe you can, instead of just pooling them all together, maybe the classic Olympia winner and the open Olympia winner, just they go against each other like it used to be, short and tall, and let them go for the overall Mr. Olympia.
And the 2-1-2 guy.
Absolutely.
And the 2-1-2 guy. Imagine.
And the 2-1-2 guy. Let the 2-1-2 and see who's the overall best. That'd be interesting.
Bumstead and Samson Daoud.
But I don't think they would ever do that because they want each title to hold its own unique, level of like, we have 3 Mr. Olympias. I think they would feel like if there was only one top, it would diminish the other guys.
Yeah.
And I think that they wouldn't want that because of the business model of the sport.
Right. I agree. I don't think they would do it, but it would be one of the ways to start reining it in a little bit.
It'd be cool.
And listen, I'm not saying that classic physique would beat the bodybuilding division over for the overall. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying Bumstead might be able to, looking at those two physiques side by side, the current Mr. Olympia and Bumstead, it's just like, if I were a judge, I'd be like, shit, if I take the overall picture into account, I'm voting with Bumstead.
Tom, what would make it really to find out what people want? Okay, the judges are the judges. But if you really wanted to find out what people want, let them all go against each other for an overall title, but let the audience vote and let the people, all the people watching, maybe they could have some type of voting system like it used to be like on American Idol.
Yeah.
And let the people in the audience vote who their favorite physique is. And then we would really know what people want to see.
Yeah.
I like that idea. And there's got to be a way, and granted, it takes some technology, but that technology is available today.
Sure. They did it with American Idol and other shows.
Yeah.
They call it some type of number you call in or voting system and let the millions of people who are, out there say, this is the physique that is ideal for me. That would be interesting.
Yep.
Listen,
that should be Mr. Olympia.
Yeah. When you have young teenagers, coming up to you or people that have nothing to do with bodybuilding, nothing to do with fitness, and they know who Chris Bumstead is, that's something, something's there. Who's the guy with the mustache, the Canadian guy, So,
that might be the solution, I mean, I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be more interesting. It would really,
it increase involvement. It would increase involvement. I mean, like it'd be interesting for the audience and the viewing audience and the audience there to become involved. You might even get a viewer audience and more popularity because, I'm part of this. I get to vote on something.
Yeah.
So.
And
I wonder, it's so interesting though when and again, not necessarily a criticism of any kind, but it just seems like the old guard isn't interested in anything new other than what's going to bring in more money. If we have another division, it's going to bring in more spectators. If we have another division, it's going to bring in more money. If we turn somebody pro, that's going to bring more people to our content. It just seems like they haven't really evolved in their thinking. And I think that old guard, and Manions and whoever else is it's just like you need some new thinking, man. And that's a great idea. Let the people vote. Get people involved in that respect, man.
I had a rant this week. I mean, I put up a video, and in fact, it was Dennis James, Milos, Chris Cormier, and there was John De La Rosa, but he was a guest on their show. At the NPC USA's, all right, there was the women's physique division. There were four different weight classes,
Mm.
all right. In all, 12 competitors, all right. In all, 12 competitors, 7 pro cards. Do the
What? How
math.
many competitors? 10?
12 in all.
12 and 7 got pro cards.
Yeah. And one lady, she was alone in her category. She got a pro card. And the overall winner, I think, of the women's physique competed in women's bodybuilding and got a pro card because she won her weight class as well. It was something like that. Can you believe? But all right, men's physique, there'll be 80 competitors and 10 pro cards. Okay, I can understand that, or 8. But 12 competitors, four different weight categories, and 7 pro cards. I mean, Milo said, why don't you just give the other 5 out to them as well? You know,
yeah, why not? Gift it out. Everyone gets a trophy, right?
And
Everyone gets a trophy.
Where are these competitors? You know, they won't be anywhere. And I've been saying it all the time. And you know, that Dennis James was kind of saying the same thing, but I can't understand. I mean, he has to be careful what he says because you can't bite the hand that feeds you. I'm just gonna say because I'm in Europe, I'm involved as well with the IFBB of Rafael Santoni. I guess you know him, Tom. Rafael, the president of the IFBB.
Mm-hmm.
He was always with Ben Weider, and the IFBB is strong in Europe, and they still have the European Championships, the World Championships, Mr. Universe. When an athlete wins their pro card in their country, or usually it's in their country, if they're eligible for a pro card, if the lineup is weak, all right, 99% the athlete will know himself or herself that they are not ready to compete with the big
Right.
boys. Okay, you're like 80 kilos. I mean, really, the president will say, they'll talk to the president of the federation and he'll tell them, listen, why don't you prove yourself? We'll send you to the Europeans or the World Championships. And if you place in the top 3 in your weight class, all right, or you make it to the overalls and you place in the top 5, you are deserving of you can get your pro card. But what happens usually, not like some people end up winning everything, but what happens? They go to the Europeans or the national world championships, dead last. They don't even get called out for the top 16. So that's where it shows the quality. You remember those days. You go to the world championships, one guy gets the pro card, the overall winner from the best amateurs in the world. And when Lee Haney placed 3rd with Samir, he won the NPC Nationals. He went to the World Championships. He came 1st, and he placed 3rd at the Olympia. Look at the quality. Today, it's not easy. It's not easy placing 1st, and you get the rush. You get everybody. Every country has their best amateurs, and they send them there. Kamal El-Garni, he dominated the World Championships for most of his career, making close to $200,000 a year because the government would he represented would give the athletes prize money and where to live and everything like that because they're representing their country and they got the gold medal home. That's how powerful it is. He made more money than Mr. Olympia.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Competing as an amateur. And
while still competing as an amateur.
Yeah, what happened to him in 82? I forget what year, 86 or something. When the media invited him to the Night of Champions because he won the World Championships. He placed he placed in 21st or 22nd. He freaked out. He went back to the amateur division, dominated for another 7 or 8 years, and then he went to the NPC again and won the 212 and and all that stuff. But that's the thing. The athletes, they're not spending the time climbing the ladder.
Right.
You win your pro card by chance. You win the pro event the same night, and you go to the Olympia. I mean,
it's interesting because it's almost a symptom of society in many respects. We want it quick. We want it now. We don't want to wait. There is no delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And again, listen, I hate to be that guy who competed 30 plus years ago and say like, in my day,
but it is.
But I remember the ladder. You mentioned the ladder. There was a specific ladder.
Yeah.
You competed in a local show. It might have been the Long Island or something like that. And then And maybe the New York or the Metropolitan,
Yeah.
and then the Tri-State. Okay, now we got the Tri-State,
Yeah.
and then it's like the Junior USA, Junior National, and then maybe if you were good enough, if you did well there, you might get to the national level. And by the time you got to the national level, you were worthy.
That's
You were
it.
worthy of at least being there. Now, granted, the guys are all good. Now, just a quick story. My first national championship in '84. I remember because I was winning like all the shows in Long Island, New York, the USA, all that stuff, and partially because I had good legs. But I remember standing on stage with these guys at the Nationals my first year. I get off the stage. I was clearly in the top 5. I get off the stage. I asked my girlfriend, I'm like, what did you think? She looked at me. She says, everybody's got legs. You're not the only one. I was like, oh, shit, that was my advantage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're right about that ladder. You have to earn your way up there, and then you know you deserve it, and you look like it.
Yeah, Bob Ciccarello, how many times? I always mention Bob because he's the perfect example. 10, 11, 12 times to win his pro card. Second, third. You know, Dave Palumbo, you know, he never turned pro. You know, you know, those guys would have turned pro on the first try if they tried it today. You know,
as good as Matt Mendenhall was, God rest his soul. I mean, never turned pro.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Rory Liedermeyer back in the day, just so good, never turned pro.
And that NPC National Championship with Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, all those.
Matt Mendenhall was in that year.
How can you judge that? I mean, back then, you know what I mean? It's unbelievable, you know. But that's the quality that there was. That's the.
You know what, too? It also dawns on me that, in many respects, those athletes, as much as we want today, we want it now, we want it quick. There's no delayed gratification. But those athletes are also missing out on something extremely important. It's climbing that ladder. It's setting goals. How do I get to that next level? What do I have to do to improve? What do I have to do after, taking third at the Nationals and then second, knowing that year it was if I don't win it this year, I lose momentum. I've got to do everything possible. But it was like, during that process, during that period of time, it was also some of the best time of my life because I was focused. I was goal driven. I was moving towards something tangible. The horizon was visible, but it also took a lot of work to climb there. And a lot of guys, younger guys, are missing out on that character building, that inner strength, that resilience required to, once you get there, you've got what it takes to climb even further to the top, or at least hold your position, They're missing out on that. It's almost being denied them, you might say.
Yeah.
And it feels easier, but there's so much lost as a result, I believe. Yeah. Fascinating subject, man.
Well, Tom, really, do you have time for one more quick question?
Absolutely. My dog is after me for a bone, but he can wait a couple minutes.
I know. I've been seeing him running back and forth like, come on, Dad. So I just want to finish this off.
He's like all over the place, man.
I see him. They demand attention, They want their attention. They want their bone. They want it now.
Schnauzers are.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, what I wanted to ask you, because a lot of our listeners and a lot of the people that I work with, a lot of people 40s, 50s, 60s, because I'm an older guy and I'm still getting bigger and looking better. And they were, how do you do that? You're obviously you're in your 60s now, are you not, Tom?
66. Yeah.
You're 66. You look like you're 50. So
thank you.
There's a reason for that. And you look, it's clear that you're still full of muscle. You're still in condition. What are you doing? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people went out there. What is this guy doing at age 66 still to look like this? You're not doing what you used to do. You're not in the gym 6 days a week for 2 hours. No. What do you do now to stay in this amazing condition that you are in?
Well, the number one, and when I'm asked this question, if I'm ever out somewhere and someone says, what do you do now? How do you stay? How old are you, man? I say it begins first with the mindset. It has to be the mindset. There's something, a Harvard University professor came up with this term called the stereotype embodiment theory. And the stereotype embodiment theory dictates that how we see ourselves, even early on, younger, in our 20s and our 30s, how we see aging and how we see older people is how we will age and get older. And if we have a model in our mind that at 50, you're starting to deteriorate, you already got a belly, you're on pros, you're on whatever it might be. And at 60, you've slowed down. At 80, if you're lucky to be around another couple of years, that's it. And so people have developed that mindset around that. And so they're just following through on the blueprint. I had to change that blueprint. I began to discover that embodiment theory that, hey, my mindset, my belief system, even if it's unconscious and I don't know about it, is influencing my actions, and actions lead to results. So I had to first change it, just like changing my mindset, reprogramming my unconscious mind. When I was younger and I thought I was just a 1%er, a biker, but truly I had the potential to be more, I had to reprogram that. And so I've reprogrammed the thinking around this as well. And part of the reason for that is because I still love working out, and I still love eating healthy, but much of the same motivation isn't the same. It's not the same. It's not the motivation of competing in the Olympia, the motivation of competing for hearts and minds and the admiration of a woman, for example, is no longer there other than my wife. And that's a given, you might say, in many respects. So you have to find other motivation, and that is to be the best that you can be. So I had to really evolve in that thinking. And again, the thinking, the mindset leads to the actions and ultimately the results. The actions had to be modified as well. I can't train as heavy as I used to. Even if I can move the weights, I know it's not good for my joints. It's just not. And so I do everything high reps, high volume. I probably stay in the same level of intensity I always have. The intensity level's up there. Those last few reps are failure. I'm going to failure. So I'm doing a routine where I do 50, 30, 20. Then I do a hypertrophy, maybe a 6 reps with some holds, like isometric stuff. I do a lot of isometric training. And and I train 2 on, 1 off, 2 on, and I take the weekends off and do some either mountain biking or hiking or something like that, staying active. Also do my martial arts twice a week, but not nearly as intense. I can't do it as intense. I've gotten injured from the martial arts. So I just practice it and I don't really go combative. So I've changed the mindset. That's number 1. Number 2 is modify the training. Can't think, and this is a shame because there's a lot of guys my age or when they were younger who were bodybuilders and still want, I'm not big. I'm 178 pounds. I like to be in shape. I like to be relatively cut and muscular and lean, but I have no illusion I need to be 200 pounds. Yeah. I don't want to be 200 pounds. Yeah. I don't have to be big. It's no longer my identity to be big, be muscular, and to be fit. Yes, that's still part of my identity. That's part of that new brain reprogramming. But a lot of guys have to still push the 90-pound dumbbells for presses, everything. I've let go of that completely. I've just said, that's not necessary. So the high rep stuff that I do really keeps the muscle active. It keeps building new mitochondria. It stimulates mitophagy, which is identifying old dead cells, mitochondria cells, flushing those out and replacing them every now and again, every couple of months or so. It's all being renewed. And the eating is very consistent. And this is one of the challenges I see for guys my age, even over age 40, and you probably run into this with some of the athletes even you work with. Maybe not for the athletes, but alcohol and diet is the biggest challenge. It's like guys in their 40s, they like cocktails. They love their cocktails. They're always drinking cocktails. I go out with some of my friends that are in their 50s or in 60s. It's like, I'll have 1 tequila. It's moderation, maybe 2 at the most. This is once a month. And they're drinking like beer and shots and still just cocktails. But the alcohol is poisoning them, and it's aging them faster, So the mindset's first, training modifications, don't want to do what I used to do, backed off, allow myself more recovery. In fact, Merlin, it was interesting because I found I was losing too much muscle. I was losing muscle. Like literally like 6 months ago, I discovered, you know what? My weight's going down. I don't like it. I'm not getting any leaner, but I'm getting smaller. And I was trying to train 6 days a week. I was training 6 days a week and not even including the martial arts stuff. And I was like, holy crap, let me try backing that down. So I went to a 2 on, 1 off, 2 on. 3-4 pounds came back on within 6 weeks. I was back up to close to 180 pounds. I was down to 176. 176! I freaked out, man. I'm like, I can't be. I can't
That's
be
too
that
light.
small. So I guess I still have a little bit of that, got to be a little bigger mindset. But 180 was sort of like my ceiling. It was like, that's it. Oh, my basement. I was like, I can't go any lower than that. So I backed off the training, still train as hard, less frequently, making sure I'm getting ample amounts of protein, and adding to that, after the bodybuilding career ended and the mountain bike accident stopped, I stopped any and all kind of supplementary anabolics. Everything stopped.
Yeah.
I was just done. But then 10, 15 years later, I went and had my blood test done. I was in late 40s, and my testosterone level was 111.
Yeah, you have
I
to
was like,
eventually get TRT.
I had to get on some TRT.
You're
And I've
not
been
going
on.
to, it's not healthy to be that low. So
It was very unhealthy. It was really unhealthy. And my ambition was gone. My sex drive was gone. I was losing muscle. I didn't want to do anything. It was like all those symptoms were there. And then it confirmed it with the blood test. So if you're over 50, even over 40, and you haven't had a blood test to see where you're at, check your total and free testosterone levels. 111 was like ridiculous.
that's
So
basement.
now I maintain between 1,000 and 800. I try and keep it optimized.
How I don't, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to, but what dosage of testosterone allows you to get at that level per week? What are you able to do?
That's a great question, because for at least 10 years, I was doing 200 milligrams of testosterone a week. That was it. And that was intramuscular. A friend of mine, my very dear friend, you might know David Lyons. David Lyons.
David Lyons and I used to, yeah, of course.
That's right. You're good friends
You
with
were
David.
we're doing a reality TV show together. Come on.
That's awesome. I had forgotten that, man.
Yeah.
David said, hey, try sub-Q, subdermal. And I said, let me try that. So I tried the same exact dosage. Now, subdermal is like under the skin, like you might do it around the belly, in the skin, and not intramuscular. And so I tried that, and I did it like every other day, got to the same exact dosage I've been on for the last 10 years, went and got tested, and I was at like 1,600. I was almost doubled.
Really?
So I backed it down. So now I'm doing somewhere in the area of just a little over 100 milligrams of testosterone a week, subdermal. I do it every other day. And it keeps me between 8 and 1,000.
So maybe like 20, like a 20 milligram dose, maybe about every other day.
Exactly. 0.2
a little bit of an insulin needle.
Every other day. So
Wow,
it's a little more than half of what I've been doing for 10 years, but it has actually increased the amount of testosterone my body has available. And that's working really well.
Wow, that's interesting. Well. I know that there's some debate on that, intramuscular versus subcutaneous, but I do know some people, and it could be unique to individuals, you don't know. But I've heard there have been some studies done where they find that sub-Q keeps a steadier level of testosterone at all times versus the intramuscular, which kind of like peaks it and then comes down. So perhaps that's the way it's working for you. But
think about it with the intramuscular, unless you're doing a lot more intramuscular, most people would do one injection or maybe two. You might split it up, 100 milligrams, 100 milligrams, just to keep it a little bit more even. But with the sub-Q, you're doing it either every day or every other day, which in itself would level it out a lot more.
That's more constant.
That's right. So it's more constant. Yeah, it's not difficult. You just have to be disciplined about doing it every day. But the syringe is so small.
You use an insulin syringe, which is a little tiny little thing. So
nothing. Every once in a while it pinches, but
that's normal. But it's worth it. It's worth it. Tom, listen.
So that's it. That's the only. And then I do some HMB. I do creatine. I do glutamine all post-workout. I do some protein supplements and some really healthy shakes that just taste disgusting and gross. But
yeah, well, Tom, listen, you've been on with us for 2 hours, which is like a gift.
Wow.
2 hours. I think it's the longest podcast yet. But I could keep you on for 3 or 4 for sure. So I'm going to maybe make you come back one of these days. I'm going to force your hand.
I love that.
But listen, I mean, one of these days, I've been saying for a long time, Tom, one of these days, we need to get together and make some content together. We need to go through workouts. We need to, because we have such a history. We have a very similar mindset. If there's any way that we can get together, whether it be in Vegas, Colorado, whatever, do some workouts on camera, talk about these things, about how to, because I'm completely of the same mind. Everything starts in the mind, and what you have in the mind is what becomes in the body. I'm
Yes.
so of that mindset in everything in life. And when it comes to training, the mind sets off everything. The mind muscle connection is real. People don't
Big
understand
time.
how real it is. I'd love to do some stuff with you. So if we can ever talk about it and arrange something, maybe when you're out here in Vegas at some point or whatever, man, we got to do it because I think it would be amazing.
Yeah.
I
But
agree. I think it'd be awesome, and it would be like a full circle, man. And I love that. Even this is a semblance of that. But being able to get together and create something of value for others would
that's
be
what I mean.
really cool, man.
I
Yep.
would love to do that with you.
Yep.
And I mean, I'll let Kevin finish it off, but I just really, Tom, thank you so much for coming on the show with us.
My
Thank you for
pleasure.
being a friend to me all these years, a
Yeah.
supporter. You're always saying, if I was your trainer back in the day, you probably would have been even better. I mean, you say such amazing things to me, which really truly means a lot. You gave me my first job in a gym. You were like my first, to me, mentor in the sense of somebody to look up to, posing everything. I've always followed your career all along about what you've been doing. And it's great to just know that, I could text you at any time and just say hello and catch up or whatever. So having you on the show is amazing. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being here. And I'll let Kevin say what he wants to say,
Oh
but
no, it was
appreciate
great
it.
meeting.
Awesome. Thank you.
It was great meeting you, Tom, for the first time. And like I said, I grew up watching you guys on stage, so um I mean, it's great. I mean, in the beginning, I just sat there listening to you guys talk about the history, and I love it. I mean, I'll recognize some names, and I could have just sat here and watched you guys, speak the entire show. I wouldn't have minded. People are probably going to tell me in the first like 20 minutes, what were you doing on the show? But for me, it was great. I mean, hopefully, maybe even after the Olympia or something, you can come back on the show, and we can even talk about your books and you do motivation as you speak to a lot of people, motivating them and things like that. So there's
Yeah,
another
I'd love
part of
to.
your life that we can talk about as well, so
Absolutely.
everything
And again, another thing that'd be fun. That would be, I'd love to talk about some of that stuff in the motivational world. And I've gotten out there as a speaker and have 2 best-selling books, but it's all about the mind. It's all about
yeah,
achieving what you want through identifying it, changing the mindset around that, and being able to have the courage to take action along the way as well.
yeah,
So you guys have taken action. You continue to do so, putting out a podcast. Listen, somebody might say, well, I better get put a podcast. No, there's a risk. There's risk involved in doing any of these kind of things. You can be booed right off the stage. Who cares? You took it, Kevin, you and Merlin. I mean, you guys are a great team, and I admire what you're doing. I admire that you continue to give back to the sport. You continue to inform. Information is power in many respects when we put it into action. So I want to thank both of you for having me on. And I can't leave without just identifying Eric one more time. As a young kid, 17 years old, meeting in Ultimate Gym in Belmore, Long Island, and then having you come into Limbrook and train, and then coming on as an employee. You've just been such a great. And I look back at some of the pictures from our gym show, and you're in it, and all the guys. That was just like those were some of the best times of my life, and you were a big part of that, man. And being open and receptive, and just a great young man who has turned into a powerful older man and a coach is something to be admired, and it warms my heart that you guys are doing this and that you invited me. So thank you so much. And for all the listeners, hey man, you want something, don't be afraid to go out and get it. Forget about it. Just make it happen. Find a way. You can do it. We all can.
yeah.
Nothing else to say, man. Drop the mic on that one, brother.
That's
Drop the
it.
mic.
Drop
That's
the
it.
mic.
Yeah, that's it
Well,
for
guys,
now.
thank you
And
for watching the show. Thank you for
yeah,
Tom for being on the show. Thank you to my partner, Kevin. Please like the show, subscribe to the channel, share it. And that was episode number 11. And I said, this is one of the best ones yet.
yeah.
Thank you again, Tom.
We'll see everybody next week, and who knows
All
what
right.
we'll have
Well,
next.
we're out.
Yeah.